Hey, I'm Dr. Luke, and welcome to our podcast on the abridged version of The Golden Bough. Joining me, as always, are the lovely producer Jordan and Ostic from Northern India. Welcome, guys.
Hello, hello. Happy
Hello.
Orthodox Easter or
Yeah,
something.
we're milking the costumes that we have at hand because it's Easter somewhere. It's with Coptic and Orthodox Easter, as Jordan alluded to. Although they probably would view us dressing as this as anathema, so I don't know how much of a big deal I want to make about it. I think they might be a little bit more pure about the synchronization of pagan rituals with their faith, but what do I know? Um, so, what are we doing today? We are looking at chapter 40, the nature of Osiris in the abridged version of the Golden Bough. And it is composed of four subsections. Let me get my glasses here. Osiris, a corn god, Osiris, a tree spirit, Osiris, a god of fertility, and Osiris, a god of the dead. Okay. There's going to be a lot to say about this, and if you're new to what we do here, we try to find correspondences between the text and the 20th and 21st century. It's part of an evolving book project I have. I'm going to have a little disclaimer, maybe not a disclaimer, but an introduction. I don't think I told Jordan this, but our friend Kristen has sent me files in her faintly German accent that I'm having my other friend put together with music. So hopefully we'll have a little theme song here soon, or a little cinematic opening. And I want to go around some of the images here on the title card to give you a taste. This is not exhaustive of all the subjects we're going to talk about, but as we look at these four enumerated subchapters from chapter 40, I want us to think about the following images and people. We're going to be doing a lot more in our development of Jackie Kennedy, as this Isis figure. And I think we'll really drill down on this in the coming chapters. There's a whole chapter. I think the next chapter is actually completely devoted to Isis. So I imagine I'll be looking for the connections with Jackie O. This time we're going to be looking deeper at her resume in regards to the publication of Egyptian material. Really, to be honest, I've seen you could really do a whole book about Jackie in Egypt. And I was thinking, there's even a book within that. So there's about 6 or 7 books that she published during her time as an editor that touch on Egypt in a variety of different ways, and specifically the Isis and Osiris myth. I've brought this book up many times. This is the Cott book, Isis and Osiris, that Jackie did. I actually have a copy of it. I got a hardback copy of it. I have not had a chance to read anything but the opening preface, which is dedicated to Jackie. If I can find it. I can't find it right now. But anyway, Katja says, thanks, Jackie, for guiding me through the realms of Isis and Osiris. So it was a very intriguing way to open the text. Also, we're going to be looking at the Kennedy Center. The Kennedy Center specifically, we're going to look at this colossal statue that is in the foyer of the Kennedy Center by Bob Burks. I believe that is his name. I've been to the Kennedy Center many a time as a child, as an adult, and there is something haunting about this sculpture, and really the Kennedy Center in general. I don't think people really say it, but I think I might have some insight into that today, given our study of Isis and Osiris. A lot of what we have done in the past has been looking at these chronotopes, these calendrical dates that seem to communicate certain archetypal energies. And I think the story of Isis and Osiris, specifically as it relates to the dog star Sirius, that's why we have this hero dog book from 9/11 here on the front title card here, Sirius. I think that this might potentially help us understand that a bit. Also, we're going to look at what Frazer has to say about the sacrifice of red cows and red animals in Egypt, and possibly look for analogs in that with what's going on in world events. There's a lot of passion, of attention given to finding the red heifer, if it's not already been found and sacrificed in Israel. And this last image I want to look at here is the weighing of, or the dropping of the falcon feather and the hammer during the Apollo 15 moon landing, We've talked about this a little bit. I want to go deeper into that and how that might potentially offer some insight into all the figures that are here on the title card. So without further ado, we can get into it. I wanted to say a bunch of stuff about Artemis, but I had a short week. On Wednesday, I did an interview with Bays Lit to discuss the Wasteland and the Golden Bough, which was a pretty successful interview, I think. And I really had to put this together in like 3 days. So there's just going to be a lot of cascading spillover really forever until I die. But we're going to be talking about Isis and Osiris for a while. So saying that, we can get into it. Do you guys want to offer any sort of initial remarks before we start?
I would love to see some local lectures about Jackie and the Golden Bough at Egypt.
I think it would do well.
I do
think it would do
too.
well if I phrased it correctly. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's layers of it that are accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think my mom would find it super interesting, even
Yeah.
just the symbols. I think most people don't take it to the metaphysical place, and that's okay. That layer of it is interesting enough. We're all here because we're like, whoa, this has some interesting implications for reality, but you can just enjoy reality too.
Yeah. Yeah. Ostic, any initial remarks before we start?
I just like the fact that we are just building layers upon layers of all this stuff. I like to return to the same things. That's kind of my style as well. So
Yeah.
it's like revision.
It really is. It really is. It very much is like an excavation in that respect. It really
It's like we're training on a data set, Ostic.
Yeah.
These symbols are the data set, and our consciousness is like looping around and around back to them.
That actually
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So let's proceed to the first slide today. I was cramming stuff into this presentation even this morning. So this one's pretty straightforward. So given the attention that's gone to the Artemis 2 moon trip, I think there's a lot of people that have picked up on the fact that like clearly there is some sort of synchronization going on with moon goddesses and great mother goddesses. I think this is palpable in the forefront of many individuals' minds, especially given the timing with Easter. If you have any concept of how Easter derives its name from Astarte and how Artemis herself has a connection to Easter via the Artemis of Ephesus statues covered in cosmic eggs. So it would be easy for an individual to be like, oh yeah, of course, Isis is another mother goddess associated with the moon. Although when we read Frazer, we don't see that. We don't see that so far, I should say. It may become more obvious to us as we progress through the Golden Bough. But as we've looked at Isis in the Golden Bough, we've seen her portrayed as a cow figure or a cow-headed priestess or whatever who carries the sun, not the moon. So what's going on here? We have also seen that Isis, as I mentioned in the title card, is very much associated with the star Sirius and not the moon. So how do we get to the point where individuals start to associate her with the moon? And this really came about through Greco-Roman syncretism in the 3rd century BCE. Okay, so when they were like we've looked at all these different translations of the Egyptian gods into Greco-Roman ones. For instance, we've looked at Ra being Jupiter, and we've looked at Apollo being Horus or Hippocrates, depending on the stage of life that we're looking at. In time, the Greeks interpreted the orb or the circle that was above the cow-headed goddess of Isis as not the sun, but as the moon, to make it more compatible with their understandings of Artemis and Diana. So that is the evolution of this goddess into being associated with the moon. So I think that might be accurate to say now. And I think it raises an interesting question about what does it mean to have these gods and goddesses evolve? Are they detached from their essential energy when they become associated with a different celestial object? Does it matter? Does all that really matters is how we locate it within our mind and how we project it out onto the world? But I wanted to offer that little bit of a clarification because in my mind, I was like, wait, Frazer and what I'm being told from other sources are not lining up. So that's what this slide is about.
This is super interesting. Like, I've been thinking a lot about different groups of people do different rituals to call in different beings, but what beings are they actually making contact with, or what maybe to take a few steps back, are they actually making contact with? And this, you're talking about what happens when we evolve a goddess or a god and change their symbols. It to me feels like a completely different energy. It's so well articulated here, and I don't have the answer, but there's something weird with the moon that is not really clicking for me yet as a student of magic, not necessarily a practitioner, but somebody who's deeply interested in it. And yeah, it feels like a different thing altogether, because what the moon rules and what the sun provides are very, very different.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
being
for
very
sure.
repetitive. I'm
Yeah,
not being very
that's fine. That's
I
fine.
don't have like an answer.
That's fine. I mean, and I would say that Frazer himself is a bit of a microcosm of this evolution of understanding. And we're going to see it here too. We're going to look at, I believe later on, perhaps in the coming chapters, we're going to look at how many people associate Osiris with the sun rather
Mhm.
than being a vegetative god, which Frazer, I think, arrived at over time and makes it very clear, at least in the abridged version, that he is not associated with the sun. Um, so
There's
and yeah, and also this issue of the connection between the animals and who they are associated with. We're going to look into the redheaded people here and their connection to Typhon and Set. So not only is there evolution across cultures, there's evolution and interpretation across interpreters of these gods and goddesses. So yeah, there's a lot
Well,
there's a
like, is
lot that's
it
up for free for all.
these are weird questions. Is the goddess herself evolving? Or are these completely different egregores projected out from the human consciousness at and I'm putting evolution
Yeah,
in
that's
quotes for a
that's
lot of
that's
reasons, but
that's that's the $1 million question is what is the nature of her existence, and does she have an existence independent of the human mind?
yeah.
It
And I
is
think
and is
so, but
Yeah,
I think it's messy.
of course it is. Of course it is. Osik wanted to weigh in here.
I mean, I had a thought similar to Jordan that she said that this goddess might be the same, but she's evolving with the parlance of the times. So I remembered about you mentioning how we're getting the images from of the far side of the moon this time. So
Yeah,
it's like, is it? It's like we are evolving that image to that image.
yeah.
So I thought that might be relevant to that. Also, even in Indian mythology, this is the same thing. It's like a goddess has different forms at different times of the day. So it's like the same. The goddess would be the same, but it's like she is appearing in a different kind of modality. Suddenly, she has some other vehicle, some other weapon with her, some other, and even gods. So we have same gods. They appear in different things. It's like a dance step. It's like a mood kind of. You have this mood. This is a temporal time during which this happens.
I
So
think that's a
yeah,
fantastic point, and I think that's something that being in India helps us understand a little bit better. I think in the Western worldview and Western theology, there's a big emphasis on rationally understanding God. And there have to be certain categories that God eternally inhabits so that he's not part of creation himself, that he's constantly mutating into something else. This is not a standard, at least when we look at Egyptian religion, like you're saying. These gods and goddesses have thousands of names, thousands of permutations. Maybe I'm exaggerating by saying thousands, but the point remains, it's no problem for there to be theological evolution on these matters. And by the way,
yeah,
I'm going to let you two chat for a second because a wasp has entered the room. Or if we could pause for 1 second.
Yeah.
yeah.
Why don't we
Let's
just
pause.
pause? Otherwise, I'm going to
Okay.
be just sorry.
We'll be right back.
All right, wasp has been sent to the underworld. Perhaps some sort of omen here that we should be paying attention to. I'm ready to progress to the next slide unless anybody else wants to say something about this. All right. So this, Ostic, I think about you a lot, especially when I'm putting together these slides and I say, what would Ostic think? And sometimes I think, oh, he's really going to like that. And sometimes I think something's going to make him groan, like, come on, man, you're reaching too much. So I'm going to say this up front. This is potentially one of those. Okay. So
Yeah.
I was thinking about the story of Isis and Osiris, and something that Frazer doesn't put as much emphasis on as other sources is how they're twins. Okay. And I'm just thinking Isis and Osiris, Jack and Jackie, Isis and Osiris. I'm like, oh, their names are similar. Like they're like mirror names, they're twin names. Like the name Isis is within Osiris. The name Jack is within the name Jackie. It's kind of like this twin thing. If you have like twin boys, you say they're like Tim and Tom or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like Tweedledee, Tweedledum, like their names are similar to communicate their twinsness. And that's always sort of been a perplexing feature of the Jack and Jackie thing. It's like, oh, they kind of have the same name. And I think that might be archetypally. I do not think there is a conspiracy for this. This is just how the universe arranges things. I don't know how much I have to say this to beat the charges, but I think that might be a clue that Jack and Jackie are these manifestations of Osiris and Isis. Not a great clue, a little clue. Okay. And what's interesting about it is they both contain 10 letters when you add them together. Now, here I'm doing this wacky gematria stuff. Like Isis and Osiris together, 10 letters. Jackie and Jack together are 10 letters. Also, and I think this is something I'll point out a little bit more in the next slide, they share a root word, right? So Jackie and Jack share the root word Jack, and Isis and Osiris share in the Egyptian. If you translate this back into the hieroglyphics, Isis just means throne, and Osiris means eye plus throne. Okay, and if I could go even a little further out there, you have Jack, and then you have Jack Eye. Okay, I know, but let's go to the next slide to take this a little bit further, if we can. So then it dawned on me, looking at the hieroglyphics this morning, that Osiris, if you look at the hieroglyphics, is one eye and the throne, and Isis is just a throne. And that's, if you look at this image of Isis, you see that in some depictions of Isis, she has a headdress that is a throne. And that's because that's her name. She's throne. That's what Isis means, throne, which is kind of crazy. She's wearing her name when she wears the throne. But I think Asta can already see where I'm going with this. If Osiris his name is One Eye Throne, it got me thinking One Eye Jacks and the Jack of Spade. Oh God, I sound so crazy. The Jack of Spades, the Black Jack, has the one eye, and it also seems to synchronize with the riderless blackjack horse that we see at JFK's funeral. This sounded so schizo, and I perhaps shouldn't have included this, but it seems like something might be there. All right. Thoughts? What do we think about this twin mirroring name, the hieroglyphic having one eye, and the potentially connected to the blackjack horse? Do we think this is crazy, or is there something there? I'm expecting a groan from Ostic.
This is very poetic. I like this.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
I like this because I think there's an explanation of why Jack and Jackie might feel a connection with each other because they have the same name. So I think that's explainable. And their names are not the things that they chose themselves. The names were given to them. So it's like something from the past that made it their name, and then they made them run in those circles of the rich elites. And then their connection, since you were talking about them being twins, and so I think that facilitates the fact that there was some tryst with destiny or something, that they had to connect with each other on a deeper level. That's why I think Jackie keeps thinking about herself and Jack as Isis or Osiris. And that makes sense because she would have herself noticed all these synchronicities in her life, that wow, they were same name. See, my name is also a derivative of him.
Hmm.
So it's like it's a, and her father's name and everyone. It's a whole fractal of, on in itself. And
Yeah.
I like this, but I don't know how would you like, where would this card come in? I like the fact that yeah, Jackie, Jack, that I get it, because Kubrick does puns a lot, so I know all these puns. So, but I don't know how you would actually connect it. Maybe spade is a death card or something. I
Well,
don't
I
know.
just there. That's the whole thing, right? We look at the Ace of Spades and the Blackjack, and also, I can sort of justify it, right? There's like two blackjacks in the deck, isn't there? Yeah, because there's a Jack of Diamonds, a Jack of Hearts, a Jack of Clubs, a Jack of Spades, and I think we looked at blackjack being Ace of Spades, and then one of the other jacks. So it just there, and in the fact that the Jack of Spades is the only one-eyed blackjack, and that somehow this blackjack thing is following Jackie and JFK. How do I justify this? I don't think I can, outside of these uncanny
I, I
coincidences.
think I think if you can go a bit further, like why is this one-eyed Jack thing in the consciousness at all? So first, Kubrick was interested in it, making a film about it. Film was called One-Eyed Jacks with Marlon Brando. He declined, and then
Yeah,
this whole thing it shows up in Twin Peaks. There's a Black
yeah,
Jack
yeah,
thing. So it's like,
yeah.
oh, so One-Eyed Jack thing. So it's like a weird thing. They want you to think about it, and why would they want that One-Eyed Jack? So I don't know. Maybe they're trying to hint at something about the Kennedys there, like, or some sort of an archetype there that is where Osiris related, because with I you can connect it with ISIS. I don't remember what actually happens in the One-Eyed Jacks club in Twin Peaks, but that might hold a cue to what that symbolism actually represents, like what's happening inside that club. Because if we'll see something ISIS related or something, then we might be able to connect it with Osiris.
All
I'm
right.
just thinking.
So check this out. And this is relevant because we just had the Wasteland conversation about the tarot card. Actually, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but um something that Elliot does in the Wasteland is bring our attention to the tarot deck, specifically the Hanged Man and the Man with Three Staves. And by doing this, he also introduces the one of the ways that we get the Fisher King involved with the Wasteland, which ultimately through Weston connects back to the Golden Bough. So there are a couple tarot cards, the King of Cups, the Man with Three Staves, and the Hanged Man, who might all have connections. Okay, and I'm looking here on Google. In Arthurian themed playing cards, the Fisher King is sometimes represented as the King of Spades or Ace of Clubs. So we're close. I think this, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that might be a fruitful area of research. If the Fisher King is associated, I don't know why they do that, why it's the Ace of Clubs, but I have a feeling it's going to go back to tarot is the point I'm trying to make here. And the cards that we're looking at are based upon tarot decks, I think.
Aren't these jacks like supposed to represent things from the Arthurian legends? Like they might
They
have like
can. They represent
corresponding,
all sorts of historical people, depending on the deck you're using or the
like
context with.
Lancelot. Some card was Lancelot, like Jack
Yeah, I
of
have to
Clubs.
go.
I think you said.
Yeah, I got to go back and look at this. I'm gonna make a note and go deeper into it. This is this is the rabbit hole, Jordan.
These cards, from what I remember, predate tarot and were used for fortune telling. So you still can do a full reading with typical playing cards. These were the magical cards. Now we have different versions of the tarot. We have the Marseille, and we have the I'm blanking on the Rider Waite
Okay.
or Wade,
Hmm.
but
All right.
thinking about the lineage of these cards are very early, and people use them for magical purposes. They use them for fortune telling. I think often we think, oh, like it drifted the other way, but there's a lot of symbolism in them. And I think somewhere else, maybe not on this show, we've been talking about Snow White. And in the Disney Snow White, her colors are pretty much the same as the colors here. And they can be thought to represent the different stages of alchemy.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
So the color palette is there. We've got, there's a lot going on in these. And I know that there's different iterations of the playing card deck that have slight variations, but at its core, the black, the red, the white are all very basic building blocks of alchemy.
Hmm.
But that's a whole show.
Yeah, I should look into it deeper.
Yeah.
Searching
It
for something.
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's just really close. I mean, a lot of what they're saying is the one-eyed Jack associated with Odin, and it really keeps the Fisher King and Osiris keeps coming back to the king of spades. It's the right suit. It's really there seems to be a debate about who's a Jack and who's a king, or at least I'm trying to make it a debate about who's a Jack and who's a king. I mean, look, we have the
You
guy's name is
already
Jack.
mentioned Jack of Clubs, like in a previous episodes, and related him with Kennedy. And you said that he is Lancelot. So it's like, and Kennedy had a regiment called the Lancers or something. And like you were saying, what are the odds that he's a Jack of Clubs?
Yeah,
And
I
then,
think the issue here is there's different phases of who JFK is because he's a he's a he's a warrior, right? So he's like a knight, and so that would be seem to correspond more with like the Jack, and then he's like a king. He's like a King Arthur. He's like an Arthurian figure, right, as King Arthur. And then at some point, either because of his Addison disease or something like that, he's also a Fisher King. So there's depend. It's like what we're saying. There's like different aspects that correlate with this.
Like for all of us.
Yeah. All right.
I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah. We're a half hour in and we're like 4 slides in. So let's keep going. I did this at 10 a.m. I really didn't have a chance to think it through, but I think that it's fertile. I'll keep pursuing it. Okay. I believe I have Jordan reading on this one right here. We're actually into the new Frazer material now.
all righty. Osiris was a personification of the corn, embodying its annual cycle of death and rebirth. His festival of death and resurrection, held in the months of Khoiak and later Athyr, was essentially a sowing festival. An effigy made of earth and corn was buried in the ground with funeral rites so that, like the seed, it would die and rise again with the new crop. This ritual was a form of sympathetic magic to ensure a good harvest. It likely originated as a simple folk practice by Egyptian farmers long before being formalized by priests into temple ceremony. A similar ancient custom still survives among modern Arabs who bury a sheaf of wheat called the Old Man in the harvest field and pray for its return from the dead, representing the probable origin of Osiris worship as a corn god. The myth of Osiris aligns closely with his role as a corn god, born of sky and earth. He embodied grain springing from soil fertilized by heavenly rains, which Egyptians knew fed the Nile. Legends portray him as the first teacher of agriculture, while his dismembered body, scattered and buried across the land, symbolizes sowing or winnowing of grain. Or, more likely, an ancient fertility rite in which a human victim representing the corn spirit was slain, torn apart, and distributed over the fields. This echoed in the Egyptian practice, recorded by Manetho, of burning red haired men and scattering their ashes with winnowing fans at Osiris's grave, suggesting the victims embodied the god, who was ritually killed and buried each year to quicken the seed and ensure the harvest.
All right, thank you very much, Jordan. So, where to start with this? One of the first things I did when I was reading this from Frazer is that I tried to find the Arab custom of them burying the sheaf of representing the man that they would bury for the crop, and there's like no images of this. And one of the reasons for there not being any images of this that I could find via Google, I'm sure it's somewhere in some book, it just hasn't been uploaded to the internet, is that given the Islamic religion that has taken over these parts, there is such animus towards idolatry that any this is not allowed to be photographed, and it's been destroyed and effectively wiped out. Although I imagine it persists in places that we've never heard of. Although we still do see remnants of it in Europe. Here's an example of some Irish corn dollies that are made. I believe they're buried at the end of the harvest, but the idea sort of persists, right, of there being men that are either buried or before or after the harvest to make the crops be successful. So it's just interesting that something that we're talking about in Egypt makes it all the way up into Ireland. And we can talk about this being circulated as a result of trade routes or whatever. But I mean, I think it's so widespread. I think we have to talk about this just being a natural conclusion that presents itself to people who are trying to make sense of their world. Something that was confusing about this claim of Frazer's and it being connected to the redheaded people being connected to Osiris was when I went and I looked up in Plutarch's Isis and Osiris these redheaded individuals that were sacrificed for these purposes. And Plutarch, contra Frazer, says it was because of Typhon, or who is the Greek version of Set. And Set was understood to be this chaotic force that had red hair, who was, I guess, for the Greeks, transformed into this Typhonian monster. And I had the AI put together a little diagram here, which is largely covered up by some of the images. But the idea from what Plutarch is saying is that these redheaded individuals, these redheaded animals, because of the similarity to Set, were sacrificed in order to actually do away with that chaotic influence of Set and not necessarily as a symbol of the ripe golden corn, as Frazer would have us believe. It's probably both. It's like so many things with all these ancient religions that we look at. It's like we're looking at an aspect of it and everything has dual meanings. But I want to point out that this raises some complications in what Frazer is having to say. Maybe I'm not being generous enough, but it is an issue. And something that I want to look at further, as I was looking into this, I was reminded of the redheaded mummies of Egypt. I have a slide here specifically on Ramses II that's coming up in like 2 slides. But I looked into that too, because if it's what Frazer has to say about the appearance of corn, and that they would burn and sacrifice these individuals in order to make it come back, why do we have kings that have red hair? Why do we have some very famous mummies that are preserved and not sacrificed in this way? And so I want to take a look at that in about 2 slides, but we have another between that. So I'll pause there for a second and allow you guys to commentate. By the way, I should say this. I would like for us to do like a group reading of Isis and Osiris. It just forces me to do it, and there's just so much there. This is the Plutarch version, but I don't know if anybody's game for that. You're like, oh, Luke, you're already making us go to school on Sunday as it is. And it's not even real school. It's crazy school.
I don't know. I think real school is crazy school.
So what do
You'd have to have a good reading voice for that. And you do.
Oh, no, I don't know. I think, to be honest, I think the Isis of Cyrus Plutarch book is like kind of already out there. It's more of just like holding myself accountable. I will say,
Okay.
I
Okay,
think I may
if
have
that's the
mentioned.
case, then I'll do it.
Okay, I may have mentioned this last week. I don't know if you can see behind me. I got my full set of the. You see that on that top shelf over there? That's my full set of the Golden Bough. So I've got all 13 volumes of that now. And no
Man.
one has ever turned that thing into an audiobook. There are a couple volumes that have been, but I guess that's my life. I'm going to become an audiobook reader for the
Oh
Golden
God.
Bough. And then I
Gotta
was thinking
take
this
it
morning,
easy.
I got to get what Frazer has to say about folklore in the Old Testament. He did a 3-volume book on that. It's like 2,000 pages long. So
That would be super interesting.
I know, especially when we
It's
get to
all
the
like the censored Fraser is all the stuff about Christianity.
yeah, it is.
It's too spicy.
Well, let's get back to this slide here. I could digress, but any thoughts on this, or should we keep going?
I think, okay, let Jordan complete. I had a silly thing to say.
Go ahead.
I just thought that like this particular tradition reaching Ireland was kind of ironic. So it's like they're all redheaded, right?
They're what?
Okay,
Oh, they're already
they're redheaded,
redheaded.
right?
Yeah, well, it
It's like,
wasn't so much the redheaded thing that's showing up in Ireland. That's a fair point. It's just more about the idea of making these corn dolls, these corn effigies. That was more of the point. Yeah, if it that but that raises a very interesting question, about the perception of red hair, and where it comes from. And the Egyptians, from what I understand, saw it as connected to Set. And there are all these jokes out there. I never felt this way. But there's like jokes out there about gingers and like I guess South Park gave this some juice that like gingers don't have souls or something. It could be traceable all the way back to ancient Egypt and Set, because that's how they understood these things. But then at the same time, they had kings with red hair. So it's all a bit mystifying to me.
yeah, I mean, it's a whole painting tradition about painting women with red hairs and like pre-Raphaelite. Everyone's. I think it. If we look into the symbolism of 18th century paintings, you'd find a bit more. I really don't know where to read about it. I think whatever people tell me, it's like hearsay. So I don't have a definitive source. I think those painters themselves operated in some kind of Freemasonry where they had their own special symbols and secrets. So I feel very left out of that. So yeah,
Well,
but like
this might.
Kubrick has a lot of redheads.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This would be of interest to you and me, right? You and I both know about the uncanny number of redheads throughout all the Kubrick work, especially Eyes Wide Shut. And that, knowing about this Set connection to red hair,
Oh
or
God! Now
Osiris.
sacrificing redheads. Literally, the woman and his daughter were redhead,
Yeah,
and his
that
wife too, strawberry blonde. What the
it
hell?
that perhaps adds a layer of interpretation. And we know that, I mean, this whole thing got started because of my interest in Kubrick, and Kubrick's like, yeah, the Golden Bough is your life. You better understand it. So that tracks with maybe something that Kubrick would have been familiar with. Adds a layer.
I'd have to look into it more. Now that you have opened that floodgate.
Yeah. Jordan, should we go to the next slide? I think I have you reading again, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Jordan was going to say something before I
Oh, I'm sorry.
made that stupid joke.
No, I was just thinking about Ronald McDonald. So it's
Hey, I bet there's something to that.
yeah, that's a whole Nephilim
Yeah,
clowns
yeah.
side quest.
I hear you.
Okay. Across these cultures, the myth of the Greek god Dionysus and his Egyptian counterparts, Osiris, serves as the primary archetype for the ritualized dismemberment of sacred figures, whether it is the mystical tearing apart of a god or the historical division of King Halfdan the Black and the magician Sagara. The underlying belief remains the same. The body of a divine or royal being contains a potent, vitalizing force. By personating Dionysus in their deaths, these figures transitioned from rulers to sacrifices, whose scattered remains were intended to seed the earth. The distribution of flesh and bone acted as a literal and symbolic guarantee of fertility, ensuring that barren lands regained their bounty and the community secured its continued prosperity.
I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I don't know what else to say except how did everybody get this idea? You know, I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, which is the only place I put this, but if you are watching, I mean, you can see here in the chart how all these different cultures were tearing apart their king gods and planting them to bring the crops back. I mean, we have it in New Guinea. We have it in Norway. Like, how is this happening?
What popped up for me is this is a myth of lack, a myth of scarcity, and a myth that we have to do extreme things to access abundance. And it has me pausing and considering the myths that currently we have as a culture. We see mass commercial pollution, we see mass debasement of people to create abundance for, the stock market. Is everything okay, Luke?
Yeah, I was just our one of our guests is not going to be able to join us. That's
Ah,
what that was.
got it. Yeah. So I don't know. It looks different, but I think we're still playing out these myths of scarcity and sacrifice to achieve abundance that we perceive to be unachievable through our own direct means.
Yeah, I think this explains a lot of the things that we've been talking about.
Mm.
This scarcity myth. That's a better framework.
I mean, it raises very interesting questions if it all really does come down to scarcity, and we are thinking that potentially this motion of the collective psyche is supervening upon JFK. What was the scarcity then? Right? I mean, this was a good time to be in America, right? So locally, at least for the American people, we weren't really dealing with scarcity at the time of this event. Unless we have to expand our understanding of this from a global perspective. And I mean, we started to see that with JFK, obviously with the
But like,
Wheat for Peace program and a budding ecological community. So
just one thing, like you talk about this not being like where's the scarcity in America, but like in these cultures, this was not like an aberration. This was like a normalized practice that you
yeah, that's
did.
right. That's right. You
So
did it
so
regardless. Yeah.
yeah. So but in America, in your case, it's like something foreign. It's like an alien thing coming in there to it's like you're not familiar with it, and it's an aberration to your culture. So the effects, I think, what people want, like, aim for are the consequences of these aberrations, like, or whatever thing is there.
I'm curious. I'm curious. W- I imagine things like this happen in India. I don't know what the analog would be in modern India, but would people in India understand it differently than people in America? Would they see it as like, oh yeah, this is part of the universe's cycle, like we get it. Like if your
No, no.
JFK had this happen, you'd be like, oh, that makes sense. It checks out with all our theology.
No,
Would it
no, I
not
don't
seem
think
so
so.
alien to us or to you?
uh like JFK, whenever you come to politics, it becomes there's a very good demarcation between religion and like real life, so to speak. So I think people don't try to mix that, and they deal with the political consequences of that. I mean, if you're talking about like a JFK figure, if like a so yeah, that I like the one thing that would be like kind of acceptable here, or people would not have like qualms with, is that the people get fatigued a lot, because uh, in general here, due to some at some places, due to lack of facilities, the value of human life is a bit like taken for granted here, in that sense that people don't care. Okay, this accident happened, okay, I will drive past it, something like that.
Mm.
So there's that callousness there, but like I don't think they would justify it to themselves that okay, this happened, so it's a part of a cycle. It's like they're like, okay, yeah, that happened. That's pretty sad. They might revolt, they might like debate on the news about what who did, but like I think it's changing now. But like for a long time, this was the case with like after the British left and like it was the country was in a very poor state. So again, that was a scarcity thing. People died a lot. Uh, People died a lot. So yeah, so that made people very yeah, whatever happens happens kind of thing. It's like in John Wick when that Ian McShane character he says that such is life. So it's a very they have a very stoic mindset here in that
Mm.
sense. But I don't think it has that. But it's not related to religion. They just said okay, it's past, it's past. I don't know if I'm making sense to you right now.
I
It's
no, I do. I'm associating it with other images in my mind too of what I know of India too. Like I see I don't. You can see this. I see like people crowding onto the trains, like like riding on top of the trains and stuff like that. Do you see that?
I don't see it in my place, but
Oh,
like
okay, but
I
you know what I'm
think in
talking
poor
about, right?
cities, yeah, I know. I think whatever, like I don't know how to defend that,
No,
but
you don't have to
yeah, that
defend it. I'm
happens here.
just look. We have a bunch of crazy things in our culture too, like that
Yeah, there are plenty of things that happen in
There's
the
just
yeah.
poor
US
people who
that
don't know what they're doing. It's that simple as that. They're like poor people who are just getting cheap thrills out of doing these things.
Well,
That's what they do.
I hope
And
you don't do those things. I don't want to read about you in a train accident.
oh come on, it's that they're like bottom of the barrel people.
Oh, I don't know.
I wouldn't be.
I didn't know who participated in this.
No. There's a
All
like
right.
very poor and uneducated people
I'd be
who
very
like.
sad if you died in a train accident.
Oh come on, yeah, sure.
Okay. We've gone off the rails. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. This goes into the redheaded Ramsey. Okay. Why don't you read that for us, Jordan?
these legends collectively indicate a widespread ancient custom of dismembering the body of a king or magician and burying the pieces in different districts to promote the fertility of the soil and the fecundity of humans and animals. Returning to the Egyptian human victims whose ashes were scattered with winnowing fans, their red hair was likely significant. Sacrificial oxen in Egypt also had to be red. Even a single black or white hair disqualified them. If these human sacrifices aimed to promote crop growth, as the winnowing of ashes suggest, red haired victims were probably chosen because they best resembled the spirit of the ruddy grain. When a god is represented by a living person, the representative is naturally selected for physical similarity to the deity. Similarly, the ancient Mexicans viewed maize as a living being progressing from seed to harvest and sacrificed victims of corresponding ages, newborns at sowing, older children when it sprouted, and old men at full ripeness. Osiris was called the crop or the harvest, and the ancients often interpreted him as a personification of the corn.
Thank you. Okay. So I could have found some images of Ramses with his red hair. I chose to do AI because it's less grotesque. I didn't want to be looking at all these old dead dudes. It was pretty unnerving, to be honest. So it looks better. They cleaned him up a little bit here. He kind of just looks like a like Ronald McDonald is taking a nap. So this going back to what I raised earlier is like, how do we square what Frazer is saying about redheaded kings being dismembered, and then we have the body of Ramses. There's other ginger mummies that we have that are world famous. I think what this has to do, I think there is nuance in the Egyptian religion that I'm just sort of learning about is that sometimes the chaotic power of Set, when it descended upon certain rulers via the red hair or some other figure, it wasn't necessarily eschewed and destroyed, that it was actually something that could be viewed as harnessed in some way. And so I think that might have been why they made the exception here for Ramses II. In fact, Ramses himself, from what I was able, the little bit of digging I was able to do, he had the red hair as a younger child, but then as he grew older, it started to not be as pronounced or prominent, that he actually started putting henna in his hair to accentuate his once very bright red hair. I'm not some sort of Egyptologist or specialist or something like this. This is just what I've learned putting this together, and feel free to fact check me on this. What is so interesting, as I was sort of poking around trying to get my mind around how Egypt could have these redheaded kings that were not dismembered, is the temple that Ramses II is at. He's at the temple of Seti the First at Abydos, and this is a famous temple. Like when you get into like weirdo fringe subjects or whatever, there's this temple has these hieroglyphics on it that seem to have things that they should not have on them, such as helicopters and like airplanes and spaceships and things like this. I don't know if you guys have seen this, right? And so a lot of people go, "Oh, see ancient aliens or something," right? The normie explanation for this is the reason why there are so many modern looking hieroglyphics at the tomb of Seti and Ramses is that it's just a coincidence, because there's like two sets of hieroglyphics that are plastered over each other, and they give the appearance of spaceships, of airplanes, of helicopters. I don't know. Fine. I don't have enough of an understanding. And like, this is an example, right? Like, see, we get the helicopter here by having these two other glyphs come together. Maybe, I don't know. I've looked at these things. They look very much like airplanes and spaceships and helicopters. Maybe, sure, that's what they say. Some other interesting things I want to bring into this, since we are talking about like Seti and Set and the connections to this man of chaos, it made me rethink, like, okay, like Seti, like I'm looking at the Seti the First, like, you mean like the equipment we use to search for extraterrestrials, like in Contact, like is Seti, search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And of course, it doesn't help the matter that we've got these spaceships at Abydos, where Ramses and Seti are. Further, Michael Aquino is kind of a polarizing figure when you start getting into like deeper matters. He founded a satanic temple offshoot called the Temple of Set. Apparently, he said like the aeon of Satan is over, and now Set rules, whatever that means. And he co-authored this paper which eventually got taken into a larger book called From Psyop to Mind War: The Psychology of Victory. It's really about kind of psychological warfare and not needing to fight physical battles anymore, and how to do this for the sake of America. I've not read it. I've thought about turning it into an audiobook just because it's like 14 pages long. It'd be out there. But he wrote this with another gentleman who I've seen his name listed elsewhere as Valley, but here it's Paul E. Valley. You can get this off Internet Archive. A lot of people are circling this individual. They wrote this paper in like 1980. And a lot of people have dug into this Valley guy, and he is, I think, on the board of TPUSA, or was, and has openly endorsed QAnon. That is intriguing on a lot of levels, given that we've looked at QAnon through this Egyptian lens that we've been looking at here. We've talked about the CK thing, right? I don't know. I mean, the thing is like, I'm not going to dig deep into this. It's not really my focal point. I'm just kind of putting it out there. I mean, the fact that they wrote a paper together in 1980 doesn't necessarily mean that things that happened in 2025 or 2020 are connected. but it is interesting. It's just out there. It's just a thing, perhaps tangential, perhaps not relevant to what we're doing, but also it seems like something. I mean, I guess the implication would be is like somehow QAnon connected to the Egyptian religion of Set. I think that's like the bigger headline here. Probably not, but worth thinking about.
I
Thoughts? I don't
think
know. Maybe I shouldn't even
there's
said this stuff. I don't know. I'm not putting it down. I find the QAnon stuff to be absolutely fascinating, not because it's true or real or not, but how it seems to be tapping into the archetypal energies of Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And we're going to
this
talk
is like
about, yeah, keep going. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
to what you said about like this person might not be related to them just because they wrote a paper in 1980. I think like all political organizations like TP, USA, and everything, they have a certain goal. They have goals in mind to achieve, and like there is a certain kind of person who would not listen to them unless something else happened. So like maybe you can call them liberals. So they're
Mhm.
like they want to live in consensual reality and something. So organizations like TPUSA or that's why he would like vouch for things like QAnon, because those things are designed to break you away from consensual reality. And
They
then
are.
after that, they like organizations like TPUSA can like take you in. You're like, oh yeah, we agree with you. So we also believe that, things like that. So that's what that's why I think they would prefer this kind of method, because what they're doing is trying to break away, trying to create a new vote bank for themselves to get themselves in power. That's just my opinion about what psychological warfare actually means. It's they might not be doing it themselves, or they might not be like feeding complete lies, but their goals for polarization and to get people on their team are being accomplished in that way.
It could also be the case that like people go all the time. I hear people say all the time. I'm not like a Q-tard, so I don't want this to come across in this way. But people say all the time, like, "Oh, QAnon's a psyop." Okay, uh, sure, but what is it? Is it false? And those can be. You can say yes to both of those things. You can take true information and perform a psychological operation. You can take false information. You can take blended information. There's all sorts of ratios of truth and falsity that you can do for a psychological operation. And it does not follow that it is a psyop just because one of the guys who wrote From Psyop to Mind War endorses it. He may actually, it could be a psyop with false information that he believes. There's all sorts of combinations here, is what I'm trying to say. And what's interesting is that in the QAnon stuff itself, it also says that misinformation is necessary. So they intentionally feed, for purposes that one can divine, mis and disinfo into it. And I'm not going to try to crack that code. It's way above my pay grade in terms of deciphering. But it's the QAnon stuff openly admits that there's like bad info in it, but for a
Well,
noble purpose.
I mean, this is a conversation I've had with my mentor and even with God directly, because sometimes, I'm always asking for guidance that will most support me in the moment. It doesn't always go the way that I think or project it's going to go. It's the information that is most necessary to get me to the next place so
Mhm.
that I can continue to grow in alignment with my destiny. But it's like, yeah, like I don't get to see the whole thing. Sometimes you kind of have to go through the meandering path or really try on a belief to figure out at the end, oh, that's wrong. Or
Mhm.
it's not quite what I thought. So I don't know, that personally really tracks with me, and I appreciate the parsing out these separate questions because we're surrounded by psychological operations, and it's very confusing. It's very
Yeah.
confusing.
Well, that might be
Something
the whole
that
point, is to induce confusion.
Right,
It's
and
a
then what's left?
yeah.
What's left is your spiritual discernment because you can't trust the videos, you can't trust the images, you can't trust a lot of the things we're interfacing with in this realm.
I think it's kind of
Lar
cool I kind of think it's kind of cool in a way because really it redirects all knowledge to internal knowledge. Like you know,
Exactly.
you can't trust the news, you can't trust things you see on the internet, you can't trust this, you can't trust that. So what's left is a lot of having more confidence in your inner discernment. But I mean, I think there's like a prevailing opinion out there that most humans are incapable, and they need to be their minds need to be managed.
Well, that's what the, Morals and Dogma opens up with.
Oh, does it?
But
Interesting.
that's how I took it. That's how I take the
I
whole
haven't read it.
metaphor of
No.
the train that they're using,
Mm,
but other people might have a different interpretation of it.
yeah.
Zooming out, I think that's exactly what we're seeing. You're seeing the complete collapse of a consensus reality around truth and a complete collapse of the ability to trust things outside of yourself. And what an amazing way to get humans to turn inward and develop
Well,
those skills.
I think it's like hygiene. I think it's a kicks.
Exactly.
A lot of people lament like, oh, we live in a post-truth world. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I guess we have to like build it back for ourselves because we can't like, can't we rely on these like shibboleths of the past.
And it's going to be different. I don't think
Well,
there's a return to what was. We are in uncharted territory, but that isn't to me a bad thing.
no, I don't necessarily think it is. Um, I might need a slight snack break. Can we do that? My blood sugar.
Sure.
I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
Give me
I need
give
some
me
more. I
yeah.
need
Give
a
me 5
splash of
minutes.
hot.
Okay.
So,
All right. Give me 5 minutes.
okay. We're on. We're on.
Of the choice for the red cows that they would slaughter and scatter and incinerate. It sounded a lot like the red heifer ritual that goes on in Israel. A lot of people are sort of anticipating this. There's a lot of eschatological end times conversations associated with this red heifer. It's quite the cottage industry too. There's like lots of little books out there about this, and I don't claim to have any sort of deep understanding about why or whatever they're doing to make this happen. But at least we see here in the left-hand column a merger between the idea that the redness of the cow or individuals is somehow associated with Set, but also the corn spirit that's associated with Osiris, and how these were spread. The ruddy grain was spread. Um, Fraser himself seems to kind of go through an evolution, little digging into it a little bit because I had the AI put this chart together, and you see down here in Fraser's view, sympathetic magic, the red color represents the ruddy grain or sun. This is this is imitative sympathetic magic, um, rather than contagious. And I was like, what? No, that's not what he's saying in the abridged version. Apparently, there was some sort of evolution that Fraser underwent from the 13 volume set to what's contained in the abridged. So his view kind of morphs from what I understand, and that's why the AI did this. And also, it is my understanding, though I have not read it for myself, that Fraser talks about this red cow in folklore in the Old Testament, the book I was alluding to earlier, that has, I guess, been neglected, banished, whatever we want to say. Some of the poking around that I did somehow, and it kind of makes sense that like I'm like, why are they burning this red cow? And it's like a sin atonement or something like that. But I think Fraser or maybe somebody else has connected it as like a penance to the worshiping of the golden calf. And that's intriguing to me. I hadn't even thought to connect these two things, that perhaps I mean, they're both cows and the color of them makes sense, but so I got to go deeper into it. But I just wanted to demonstrate perhaps synchronization or inheritance from Egypt with this red cow ritual. But there's a lot more that I have to dig up in order to make the link even stronger. But just bringing it to our attention in case people don't know about this red heifer and that there is something analogous going on in Egyptian religion.
Don't they breed them in Texas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a weird thing too, is that there's like ranches that they're like they're trying to find them. And so, I've seen stuff like that. And then they're going to they got an altar and they're going to build the third temple and all this other stuff. It's just crazy. Our world is crazy. Like you can just be like, oh yeah, like we're totally past all this stuff, but like our world is still being run by these notions of temples and sacrifices. And like, I don't know if we're like afraid to talk about it or something, but like, this is as irrelevant as ever.
No kidding. Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
The positivists have taken over the academia and then they are giving easy explanations.
I mean, yeah, I never heard about a red heifer sacrifice until I like started getting into like truth stuff. It's not even like it's a this stuff is on the news. This is like not
Yeah.
hidden.
It was
So
happening, I think, a few months ago, actually.
I feel like it's
Just
forever
before,
happening. I feel like they're always finding the cow and they're always making the sacrifice. I've been at this long enough. I feel like I've lived through my like 7th perfect red cow at this point. I'm serious. It's like perpetually going on. Yeah.
Well,
So anyway, just a parallel. I mean, I don't really have anything more profound to say than that, except for I probably will go deeper into the Frazer folklore in the Old Testament and find the passages and draw that a little tighter. Maybe I can do that for next week.
cool. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Okay. Next slide.
Yes.
I think I have you reading for this. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Osiris was not only a corn spirit, but also a tree spirit, possibly his more primitive form, since tree worship predates the worship of cereals. His character as a tree spirit is vividly shown in a ceremony described by Firmicus Maternus. A pine tree was cut down, its center hollowed out, and an image of Osiris was carved from the wood and buried inside the tree trunk like a corpse. The image was kept for a year and then burned, mirroring the ritual of Attis. This rite likely corresponded to the myth of Osiris's body being enclosed in an erica tree, and it is depicted at Dendera, where the god's coffin is shown inside a conifer tree. Consistent with his role as a tree and vegetation spirit, his worshippers were forbidden to damage fruit trees or block wells essential for irrigation. Legends credit him with teaching people to train vines on poles, prune them, and make wine. In ancient papyri, Osiris is shown with hanging clusters of grapes or enthroned before a luxuriant vine and ivy, always green, was sacred to him as his plant.
Yeah. So thank you, Jordan. It was actually kind of difficult to find images that would track with the summarization that Jordan just read for us. This is from the bas relief from the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. And illustrative of the many names of these different gods, this Dendera relief depicts Osiris Seker, literally embedded within a sacred trunk, manifesting his primitive identity as a living tree spirit. So there's probably a whole other side quest about who Osiris Seker is. We've looked at Osiris's connection to the moon through Osiris Law. It's a lot. It's a lot that I still have to understand. But in general, this is Osiris. This is him within the tree. I find it interesting, on two levels. We've looked at how figurines of Attis were hung from trees, and we looked at Attis's connection to tree spirits, and something similar is going on when we have these figurines of Osiris hung on trees, but then, and also built within the trees or carved into them. I think the idea is in some ways the goddess, the god, oh, not the goddess, the god Osiris is like recharging nature, like he's being subsumed back into nature and fused with it so that it will come again. So he's like a battery or something like that that makes it germinate. I think that's the how to explain him being assimilated and assumed into the tree trunk itself. Kind of an interesting idea, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
it's
Odin was hung from a tree, and he was
Yeah.
meditating or something. So
Well, that might be how we get to how we. I haven't even touched Odin, but that might be how we. Because Odin, going back to our card conversation, is one-eyed. That might be how we get to him being the Siren, one-eyed Jack, Fisher King character. But that we'll save that for a future conversation. But I do want to keep talking about vegetation, unless Jordan wants to say something about this.
no, I think I'm good. It's a deepening of a spiral that we've touched on a lot, and something that in my own experience has been really interesting is sometimes when I have conversations about these things with people who are kind of counter to the mainstream, if I, like highlighting, oh, like, tree worship is so interesting how it kind of falls in with Christmas. There's sometimes some pushback of, oh, well, but what's wrong with kind of communing with nature? And I agree, but it's like there's layers to this that are so fascinating. And as we keep pulling them back, what these rituals have embedded in them energetically is not what it seems, both in how it's currently playing out in the Western world and like the counter Western traditions. When we think about Wicca and these other things, it's like even
Mhm.
that there's these underlying things beneath them. And this isn't to critique anyone or say people are being evil or doing horrible things. It's just fascinating to me. And for myself, like my repulsion and attraction to these different ceremonies and rituals keeps sort of shifting
Yep.
as we go deeper into the origins of them.
Yeah, something I should point out that makes it more complicated. I'm sure Frazer picked up on this. If you read the Bible, frequently it talks about Jesus being hung on a tree, and then people kind of it's like, oh, well, that's what they're saying, put on a cross, which is also made out of wood. So, you can see the similarities with Osiris and Odin and all these other individuals who are hung from trees. But it is a curious way that it's expressed in the Bible in certain passages, and they hung him on a tree. Like I'll find the exact passage, but
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It's fascinating.
that makes sense. Also, I like this inverted Isis here on the right. It's like she has a throne on her head, but it's upside down. And so yeah,
Oh yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I think these are maybe that's if I don't know if Isis has a sister, if that's who that is. I think I knew. I think I might even have something in my notes about that. But by the way, it's in the book of Acts where they talk about Jesus being hung on a tree. Yes, this is these two women here. One is obviously Isis, which we've learned that we can recognize with the throne on her head, but the other woman is Nephthys, so both of them are involved in this ritual. And so not that I'm learning. I've got a very rudimentary understanding of the hieroglyphics, but you can see here in this inscription over top of Osiris, you can see the Djed pillar, which we've talked about a little bit. And something I want to explore further is like I can't quite get my mind around the coffin here having the falcon or hawk head. Like I'm like, is this Horus? Is this Osiris? And I have a whole thing where I'm going to explore that future because we understand that Horus is the falcon, you know. So what's going on here? Why is Osiris being associated with this bird? And
I think
it's this evolving, complicated thing. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's like a transformation into another being. And I think last time you mentioned about Horus being somewhat related to Jesus Christ. Did you? Like I don't know. I think
I
I
mean, in a
heard it.
variety of different ways. I mean, if you look at the I mean, look, if Osiris is the father god, then Horus is the son. Like Jesus is the son of God, but then also like um the like a lot of the like the pietas and things like that. The inspiration for like Madonna holding the child often comes from Isis and Horus. So I
Yeah,
guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of iconographic transmission, but I'm not one to one saying they are the same thing, but they are
yeah, yeah, yeah.
expressions of this trinity.
That's nice. Also, it kind of strengthens that thing in The Shining, where there's a very intentional confusion between who is the son and who is the father in Jack and Diane.
Yeah, that is
Like
good. That is good. Right. It's
so,
kind
it's
of
like
shifting.
so because he's drinking Jack Daniels there, and it's like the movie is meant to tell you that they are kind of interchangeable in a way, the father and the son.
Yes,
Like
that's
son
interesting.
represents
I hadn't thought about that. We do kind of have a trinity going on, don't we?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought that was common knowledge. This one was very okay. So yeah,
Well,
a
no,
lot of
it might be common knowledge. I just hadn't thought about it like that.
yeah. So it's I think Kubrick might be reflecting on all these things that we have been picking up on because it's clearly looking like Horus and and it's Osiris. So he might have realized that oh, it's a transformation from Osiris to Horus, and Horus is like the son of Isis. So also it's like it's a rebirth ritual actually. So him
Yeah.
turning into Horus is actually like very appropriate because he's going to be born anew, and and then Isis is going to breastfeed him or something. I don't know. It's like, does that make sense?
Yeah, there is a transformation. Well, I think we'll get some clarity on it. I started to dig into it a little bit this morning. We'll get some clarity on it next week. It's like the top of the unfinished slides for next week. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Because I think, are we coming up on the Ivy? Yes. This was strange. And I want the two of you as witnesses for this. Okay. So I don't know if you remember, like 5 or 6 weeks ago, we were talking about the vegetative symbolism that surrounds Addis. And I had a whole slide on like, see, like and this was one of the ones where I was like, oh, this is going to make us groan. Like I was trying to find connections between Ivy and JFK. And I kind of came up empty handed. I mean, obviously, he's associated with the Ivy League because he has a school at Harvard, the Kennedy School. He was a Harvard man himself. We looked into that a little bit, but it wasn't like great evidence for like him being associated with Ivy. And I was trying to pull that back up from the previous slides, and I was trying to get the images. I was having trouble finding them, so I just said, I'll just do a Google search and screenshot some stuff for the slide. So I just put JFK Ivy in, and there's like 2 or 3 pages of the first Google search engine results for this story that I'm going to tell you. So apparently, the ambassador of Ireland gave JFK this Swedish ivy that is seen here on the mantle at the White House behind Reagan. Okay. And it had been there since 1961 when it was given to JFK. And then about a year ago, Trump disappeared it. It went missing. Nobody really knows where it is. I think it's likely in some sort of White House greenhouse from what I was able to track down. And he replaced it with these golden chalices and cups, which are probably very interesting in and of themselves. There's probably like a holy grail narrative going on here. Now, why is this so interesting? I don't want to say I did an exhaustive search for JFK and Ivy 6 weeks ago, but it was pretty thorough. I have a feeling if the missing ivy at the White House, which has been covered by Mother Jones, Washington Post, all these big publications, right? like they were using that as like another way to like get at Trump because he's such a bad guy tearing down the liberal saint of JFK, right? I have a feeling I would have seen that. Not to mention just the whole story since it's been around for like 60 years, 60 plus years. I have a feeling like there've been a lot of stories about this ivy. Apparently has this whole backstory where interns and things like that that work at the White House are allowed to take scions of it and plant it all over the world. So this ivy apparently is all over the nation, all over the world, and it originates with the Swedish ivy that was given to JFK at the White House. So this is interesting because now we have more evidence about the sacred plant of Osiris being connected to JFK. Thank God, because that was a little weak 6 weeks ago. And then we have, thank God, we have more evidence that like there's this narrative of Trump rewriting the JFK legacy, which I've enumerated with the plain colors, the rose garden. What else have we talked about? There are all these different things, right? And here's just the Kennedy Center, him putting his name on the Kennedy Center. There's all these things where he's rewriting the JFK story. I'm just having trouble believing that I missed this Swedish Ivy story, given how much I researched it previously. And that got me looking into something. There apparently this is a phenomenon. I'm having this phenomenon with synchronicity lately. Jordan's seen it happen, where I'm looking for something and I'm getting a very specific answer. I'll give a little side story here. Like I started this like sardine diet where I just was eating sardines exclusively a couple weeks ago. And someone close to me asked me what type of fish Jesus ate. And I just Googled it and it was sardines. And I was like, what? My entire life, like Jesus has just been eating sardines and now I'm eating sardines. And similarly, this has been happening in a multitude of different ways. This is another example. I'm looking for JFK and Ivy, and here's the Swedish Ivy story. It's like perfectly tailored. This is like a variation of a species of synchronicity that apparently other individuals have encountered during doing research projects and things like that. Arthur Kessler described it when he was putting together his book, The Roots of Coincidence. And he actually gave it a name. And they're called library angels. This phenomenon of giving, like, apparently this happens all the time when people are doing really deep in something where they need the answer for a thing and they crack it open and it's right there, like right in front of them. Or like they need a book and it like shows up in a TV show. It's the exact thing that they need for the thing they're doing. It's like, and this seems kind of, I've talked about synchronicity a bunch on this show. This seems kind of like a new thing that's happened to me. Jordan's seen it happen a variety of other ways with me, but I don't know what's the weirdest part about this. That we have JFK more with the Swedish Ivory, the Trump replacing it, or the whole library angel digression. So I'm going to stop talking. You guys can weigh in.
I like to believe
Yeah.
that they are library angels.
It has a name, library angels. But I think with me, if this is true, this is like a deeper thing about it is that it's not that this sounds so crazy, but whatever. Nobody watches this stuff. It's so crazy because, like I said, I didn't go to the ends of the earth looking for the Ivy JFK connections, but it was pretty thorough, and this seems to have been injected into the timeline. Did this exist 6 weeks ago? Like, or could Google have not prioritized this? If you punch JFK Ivy into Google right now, you can check. It's just going to be this story.
Yeah.
It
Um,
happened
I-
pretty recently, right?
Huh?
It happened pretty recently.
Yeah. It happened to me a couple days ago. Now, the story about Trump replacing the Swedish Ivy happened last year. That's when people started noticing. This article is from March, 6, 2025? That Mother Jones did it. So what's going on here? You're muted, Jordan.
there's like 2 layers of it. There's like reality rendering around us, And maybe these are actually the same thing happening, but different ways of perceiving it. But there's the reality rendering around us. And then there is us calibrating to different energetic dimensions so that we're able to perceive different things, which is different than it re-rendering. I don't know which it is. But in
Was
my
I blind to this before? Like,
I
I
mean,
feel like I would have jumped at this. I don't know.
it's also what we were talking about earlier with sometimes God giving us information to get us to keep going in a particular path.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
true.
once we're ready for the next layer, it is revealed to us, which you experience
I
constantly.
do experience it constantly. But it was almost like, yeah, it's like you're saying. It's almost like, oh, I was like worried about I didn't have enough info on the Ivy thing. And it's like, oh, make something happen. Give it to him. Like, it's not going to be that disruptive. Give it to him. Well, the timeline
Yeah,
can
I don't,
tolerate this Swedish Ivy story from the Irish ambassador.
yeah. I mean, like I said, we're in this weird holodeck where we have kind of a consensus projection happening that we can interact with. And then there's dimensional layers within the simulation that we can attune to. But just like a dog has a different conal structure, you know what I mean? Like our
Yeah.
consciousness can only perceive so much. And as that shifts, or, I feel like this happens to me constantly.
Yeah.
And even on a more personal, benign level, as time goes on, I'm able to see or receive more information about something, but it feels weird when it's like, "Oh, how did I not find," like
Yeah.
this isn't like you read a book and you saw a new metaphorical layer to it, right?
Mm,
This is
no.
more binary, but
Mhm.
how different is it? I guess in my mind, it's like, how much of it was like you were just not attracting that information yet or ready for it versus, and again, maybe this is all the same thing, but like the TV remote changing on us.
Yeah. That's a crazy story.
Is that what
But
this is? And even in that context, did we shift, or did we stay in the same place and like the simulation shift?
yeah.
And I'm being very confusing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all actually one mechanism. It's just like me describing different aspects of the same thing.
It's when you reach a level of understanding, your consciousness is able to get directions from very vague things in general. So like you have so much context already built up, you might see something that would seem pretty banal to someone, but for you it would click instantly and like get you off to running two different directions. I think that happens. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe the algorithm thought that this guy is searching for JFK a lot. Let me push that.
I mean,
So
yeah, maybe maybe the algorithm changed. Maybe the story was buried and it brought it up. I don't know. Spending a lot of time on it. It's interesting, but probably should progress to the next because we're doing all right on time. What slide are we on? We got what I think 8 or 9 more slides. Yeah. Okay. Jordan, you're muted. Let's go.
I'm just laughing about how much more there is.
Okay. Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. I think you're reading on this. I think it's pretty
Yes,
straightforward.
yes. As a god of vegetation, Osiris was also regarded as a god of fertility and creative energy in general, since early peoples did not clearly distinguish between the reproductive powers of plants and animals. His worship featured strikingly explicit sexual symbolism. At his festivals, women carried obscene images of the god through the villages, singing his praises and activating them with strings, a charm intended to promote crop growth. A similar image, adorned with fruits of the earth, stood before Isis in a temple, and at Philae, the dead Osiris is shown in his bier with his generative power visibly intact, ready to restore life and fertility. Hymns praise him as the one through whom the world grows green, calling him the father and mother of mankind, on whose breath and body people live. In this paternal role, he was believed to grant human offspring as well as agricultural abundance, with festival processions serving both purposes. Though the emblems and rites appear coarse to modernize, the Egyptians' aim, ensuring fertility of crops and people, were practical and understandable. Only their methods were based on mistaken sympathetic magic. The Greeks used similar symbolism and Dionysiac festivals, creating a superficial resemblance that has often led scholars to wrongly equate the two distinct religions.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly what image to choose for this. I didn't know if there were like ancient pornographic puppets or something out there that I'm supposed to put in here. That didn't seem appropriate for what we're trying to accomplish. But this is the resurrection of Osiris at Dendera. You've got, I guess, the masculine member here kind of rubbed out, but and you've got Isis has transformed into the kite, and this leads to the conception of Horus. Pretty straightforward, I think. I don't really have a lot more to say about it than that. I still think there's some ambiguity about how I completely understand how the obelisk was associated with the fertility symbol of Osiris, but so I still think there's some ambiguity about how that and the Djed pillar and things like that work together. But we kind of understand the motions of this, so I think it's okay to go to the next. Talk about the underworld, which is what's going to be preoccupying us for the rest of our time. You're muted.
We have seen that in one of his aspects, Osiris was ruler and judge of the dead. To a people like the Egyptians, who not only believed in a life beyond the grave, but actually spent much of their time, labor, and money in preparing for it, the office of the god must have appeared hardly, if at all, less important than his function of making the earth to bring forth its fruits in due season. We may assume that in the faith of his worshippers, the two provinces of the god were intimately connected. In laying their dead in the grave, they committed them to his keeping, who could raise them from the dust to eternal life, even as he caused the seed to spring from the ground. Of that faith, the corn stuffed effigies of Osiris, found in Egyptian tombs, furnish an eloquent and unequivocal testimony. They were at once an emblem and an instrument of resurrection. Thus, from the sprouting of the grain, the ancient Egyptians drew an augury of human immortality. They are not the only people to have built the same lofty hopes on the same slender foundation. A God who thus fed his people with his own broken body in this life, and who held out to them a promise of a blissful eternity and a better world hereafter, naturally reigns supreme in their affections. We need not wonder, therefore, that in Egypt the worship of other gods was overshadowed by that of Osiris, and that while they were revered, each in his own district, he and his divine partner, Isis, were adored by all.
Okay, I think whatever we're going to talk about here the next couple slides is profoundly fascinating and potentially the most important stuff we're going to talk about today. But it's admittedly very messy. It's kind of a jumble. I don't know how to get my mind around it, but like this is a workshop. We're just trying out the ideas. Okay. Something that got me down this path and thinking about Osiris as the god of the dead got me thinking about the ritual that happens in the Hall of Mot, where you're weighing the feather against the heart, right? And we see this very clearly. This is being alluded to in Apollo 15 with his named Falcon. They have a falconer on that. Falcon is associated with Horus, but maybe also with Osiris, given the transformation that happens. And during that landing, they do the Falcon feather hammer drop, and they both fall at the same time on the moon. Okay, this is supposed to demonstrate something about gravity fields. Okay, whatever. Okay. Going deeper into the symbolism of it, the weighing of the feather against the heart, that happens in the underworld. Okay. And if the falcon feather drop is a reference to this Assyrian story, I think it might serve us well to posit that somehow the moon is associated with the underworld, the abyss. Okay. And that's just where I don't know if JFK as Osiris, he is shattered. He is, we erect these kinetic obelisks that go and take his seed to, or take his essence to the underworld. It's weighed, right? We have this falcon feather and this hammer. And you think about it, like what could, like, does the feather symbolize his spirit? Does it symbolize pureness? But then, like, the hammer, what does it symbolize? Is that like a reference to the military industrial complex, or what are we talking about? Or we may even talk about something from a different sort of mythology. We're talking about the Norse stuff. I don't know, but just trying to get my mind around this. And it's not that one is shown to be heavier or lighter than the other. They're shown to be equal. And I wonder, like, the fact that they're shown to be the same, that it's a counterbalance to perhaps this military industrial complex, if that is something that is worth noting. And then supposedly there is the return of vegetation through the ecological movement, the blue marble, environmentalism. And there's like a charging or something that happens that then potentially gets back into this return of the air, return of the Horus figure, which seems to be JFK Jr. I'm telling a story here. I don't think it's perfect. I do not have a great enough understanding of what's going on in the Egyptian narratives, but I think with a closer look at what's being weighed on the moon, the falcon symbolism, and the moon potentially being a stand-in for the underworld, I think we can kind of get some clarity on some things. But is this highly speculative and could be torn apart into a million different pieces. I'll just put that out there for now, and then we're going to kind of develop it a little bit more.
Thor comes to mind for me immediately. We talked about that today.
Yeah.
I think we've already mentioned that about the moon being an underworld figure. So in the previous podcast, we've been talking about the similarities between Doctor Strangelove and the moon, right? So once we talked about like all the Apollo experiments were done on nuclear sites,
Yes,
and
that's
then
right.
and at the end of Doctor Strangelove, which was like literally a Nazi guy, he said that we should create like this eugenical society, like underground the earth, where we'll have these things, whatever. So there's a connection of, and then we talk. What does he say? He means that we're gonna rebirth a new society underground. We're gonna rebirth
Yes.
the underworld, and then we realize that the moon is itself a fertility ritual where we are like there's the first Garden of Eden things going on there. The guy who lands there is like the Eva and all that, and they describe these things like landing on the moon in biblical terms. It's like the first man to step there. It has a sense of being born anew. It's like
Yeah.
the moon. So in my mind, like connecting the moon with the underworld, and it's literally another world. It's a world away from us. We
Yeah.
can literally see us from there. So it's not a far to stretch that for me. The moon can symbolize the underworld, like being on the moon. The setting is like there's no stars, so things
Yeah.
like that.
And yeah, it's interesting you say that, because someone who, there's very much, especially in the wake of all this Artemis stuff, that people want to like posit all this, like these satanic motives for doing this. And of course I entertain all these things, but like the idea of like going to another world and creating it, it doesn't really matter if it exists objectively. And we weave all these like Genesis and creation stories into it, and the underworld stories, as long as it exists in the minds of men. it exists in a way, as much as anything else, maybe, if the reality itself is like inherently subjective to a certain degree. So it's like you are kind of becoming gods of another realm, but it purely exists as it's a shared delusion of mankind. It's like, yeah, we can do what God does. It just exists in consensus reality, and we are we put a flag there. We go around it and we name it and put stars in it, all this other stuff.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, so few people have gone there, maybe 12 or 13. Now there's going to be, I don't know, 5 or 6 people have gone. So there's going to be 17 people now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Gone. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's build on this a little bit more, unless Jordan, you want to say something else?
No, I'm good to keep going.
Okay. So this is just a puzzle that I'm trying to figure out. I thought this picture was interesting. We've talked about Jackie going to Egypt to check in on the Temple of Dindur and the Aswan Dam project. We've talked about this extensively, about her and her husband were instrumental in saving those archaeological treasures. And one of them, the Temple of Dindur, gets relocated to New York, and she lives right across the street from it. It's a temple to Isis, on and on and on, right? So I started thinking, I was like, I haven't really explored JFK Jr. in this whole like Egyptian stuff. I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense that he's Horus, but here's a picture of him. He apparently went with Jackie to Egypt, and here probably multiple times, but here he is with his stepfather, Aristotle, on a camel. So I thought this was an interesting picture. So I started to think, okay, JFK Jr., July 16th, he passes away. He dies in the plane crash. And July 16th is the Apollo launch. And then it occurred to me even later that July 16th, right? That's the Trinity test. Why is July 16th so important? We've looked at this from a chronotope perspective. Well, I dug into it, and we've talked about this. It goes back to Sirius. July 16th is connected to Sirius. And it didn't really connect to me at first, because I knew like Sirius was associated with the flooding season in Egypt, which happens, August, September, October, November, around there. And I think about Sirius, I think about the dog days of summer in the Northern Hemisphere. It's typically later July, early August. It's not July 16th. But guess where it is July 16th? In Egypt. The helical rising of Sirius in Egypt happens between July 16th and July 19th. I was thinking about it wrong. If you change the location, Sirius becomes visible between those two dates of July 16th, July 19th. It's a different story in Northern America. So the fact that the Trinity test, the Apollo launch, and JFK dying are all connected with the resurrection of Osiris in Egyptian religion, given the date on the calendar. So that is very intriguing to me. So now that if we could lock it in, that these things are definitely matched to the helical rising of Sirius, we might have a clue as to what pattern is at work. And this gets into some predictions, which I don't like to do, but we're going to talk about them just to talk about them, because I've been doing okay with them lately, but this would be interesting. So we can go to the next one, or you want to stay here, Jordan, or you guys want to say anything about this?
I'm content. We've talked a lot
no,
about
no, keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. And again, I am so green. I don't,
green. You're green, you
I am
say.
green. I'm so green about this. This is just some AI imagery. Looking into this, I was like, okay, it's 30 years. It's 30 years between Apollo and JFK Jr. dying. And I started interrogating the AI. I was like, is there anything important about this 30-year period? And apparently there is. There's something known as like the Sed festival or something like that, where apparently within Egyptian religion, after 30 years of rule, there had to be kind of a testing of the ruler to see if he was still fit, and he would go into a chamber and come back with a new name and revitalized, and he could continue on ruling. It's kind of similar to this idea of the Fisher King, or the king that is wounded in the thigh or whatever. So it perfectly matches 30 years. Now there's 24 years between 60. There's 26 years or between Dallas and I'm sorry, I'm wrong. There's 6 years between Dallas and 1969, the Apollo launch, and there's 24 years between Trinity and the Apollo 11 launch. So there's that 24-year cycle. So I don't know how to think about this yet. It might have something to do with increments of 12-year cycles. We'll have to look into that in a second. But knowing that there is this 30-year thing, and there is this story within Egyptian religion where Horus does go into the marshes and goes into seclusion in order to somehow get back at the conspirators of Set, perhaps we could start to see another event in the future associated with the heliacal rising of Sirius. There's a lot more I could say about this. I'm kind of running out of steam here. So let's go to the next one. There's a lot more detail on the graphic here, okay? So if this 30-year period is what's in play, and it is connected to the rising star of Sirius and the return of Osiris, and there is this story, and I don't know. Everybody who's kind of like sniffing around this truth stuff is somehow anticipating that JFK Jr. is like in the background somewhere. And that even this love story show that came out recently that ends with him saying that he's not dead, which was many people interpreted metaphorically like that his spirit lives on. Don't weep for me in the grave. But in another way, it could be like a potential tell. 30 years from his disappearance is July 16th, 2029. And I'm not versed on how this said festival cycle works, but there seems to be something very important about that 30-year period, allowing 30 years of something to reign. Where they reign, who reigns, I'm still kind of working out and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but a candidate for the reveal might be July 16, 2029. Now, how this works, there's an 84-year cycle from July 16, 1945 to that potential date. What that 84 means, I don't know. I mean, it's 7 12-year cycles. So maybe that's significant in and of itself. But this is about as deep as I can go with it. It's out there, not predicting this, but I'm just saying there's a pattern in play that I was previously unaware of. Okay, that's really all I got for this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be crazy if I got
good.
this right? Wouldn't it be crazy if I got this right? I'm not. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. But you know, I'm not going to be one of those people.
Let's just say, I mean, people would see it if you got it right?
Yeah, I guess I've documented it now. But I'm not educated enough to feel strongly about this. You know, I just learned about this stuff this week. You know, what I do feel more strongly about is the serious connection to those events, and how they have that Osirian flavor. They're all happening as Sirius rises in Egypt. Okay, that's enough for me. Of course, I feel like that's a pretty strong data point. When you have the Trinity test, which by the way, they drop from like a tower. So it's kind of like a inflamed obelisk in and of itself. And then they've got like a pyramidal obelisk at White Sands at Trinity, right? It's like made out of lava stone or something like that. And we're going to talk about Launch Complex 33 in a minute here. We talked about this last time with the first time grain was shot into outer space in 1946. But they've got that there as well. Not to mention like the Egyptian tone of White Sands. We'll get there in a minute. But you've got Trinity Test, Apollo, and JFK Jr. all happening while Sirius is rising in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
This is some serious shit. To quote Back to the Future, this is some serious shit.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the monolith the obelisk?
From 2001?
Yeah.
It could be.
Maybe not.
I'm open to it.
You're tapping.
Yeah. He's inspired. He's looking for something.
You guys continue.
But I don't know how to talk about it. There's like layers, right? Like there's
of course.
There's like so if this pattern is in play, there's what's happening in the underworld, there's what's happening in the political world, there's what's happening in the sky. Like it's like trying to describe I'm trying to describe all these things at once, and they're like layered archetypal sediment layers that are happening here. And I feel like I'm talking diagonally or zigzagly when trying to describe what's happening here. I need to I need to get those layers more defined. So where is Osiris during the 30-year period? Where is Horus? What part of this tic-tac-toe board or the chutes and ladders? Like, where are they? Are they in the underworld? Are they hidden on this plane? Like, where are they? I'm confused. It's a jumble to me, but I think it's in play.
So,
Ostick likes this. I thought Ostick would groan at this and be Mr. Skeptical, which I to be honest, I really do rely on your skepticism a lot.
I mean, I can be, but I'm trying to be generous. Like I can be very close-minded and like put all the things down, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm like, let him cook. It's like,
yeah.
But I was looking at like the Potsdam conference, like where it was held. I thought it might be near Egypt, so it would like create the connection with Sirius to July 16th more strong. But it's not. It's in Germany.
Which conference? The Potsdam conference?
So the reason they gave about why they wanted to detonate the bomb on July 16th was that they had to do it right before Truman had a meeting with Stalin in a conference.
Interesting.
So he had to tell him. So they said that the conference is on July 17th. So I thought like maybe the location of the conference was like in Egypt or near Egypt because those would be neutral territories in the context of the war. But like no, it's not there. So that was that it's in Germany.
Yeah, that would be an
But
interesting.
maybe the longitude might be in Egypt or something. Maybe it does have that serious rising. But yeah, I like this.
I think it has. Yeah. And the number 33 is all over this, and people typically associate that with secret societies, like Truman's like the 33rd president, and stuff is happening on the 33rd parallel. I typically see this as like moments of transformation, right? But I think you need to dig deeper into the number 33 as it relates to Osiris. But yeah, wouldn't that be crazy? July 16th, 2029. That feels about right. That feels about right. Because then Trump is done. The Trump era is over. Yeah, exactly. That timing feels pretty good. But we'll see. I guess.
How old would he be? But then he would be around
Trump?
No.
Oh, JFK Jr. I think he'd be like 65. He was what? He was born in maybe 66. He was born in
63. 63
He
he
was born
was
in
like a small
60. He was
child.
born 60. He's born 60. So he would be 69 years old. Or 68 years old because his birthday is November 25th. He'd be
So
68 years old.
yeah, I mean 69 is itself a
Yeah.
good number because it's
Yeah.
like yeah. I'm not able to explain it. The shape, it looks like a cancer. It rotates. It's like people call it the Golden Gate number or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was pretty young
That'd be
by the
crazy.
current standards of presidents.
The symmetry too, like reappearing on his death day, that probably is appealing. And reappearing 60 years after his father's crowning achievement with Apollo would be good too. That'd be good too.
Oh wow.
And then that, that obviously connects to Horus and Hippocrates. So it'd be good. It'd be good. It would be a good one. It would line up pretty good.
Yeah, it looks pretty tight from this standpoint.
Yeah. Well, there's just so many facts. This is a guy who's been studying Egyptian religion for like 3 weeks. So, I can only be so.
I think the more information you'll get, the more confused you'll get. I think this is kind of like you've not been beaten down by details right now, so you
Yeah.
might get some insights while you can.
Yeah.
The more details
We'll see. That'd be so cool if I got it right, because that probably line up when I'm like, I'll have this book all finished, like written up and stuff. And then I was like, yo, I called it. Let's see. How did he know? The new Nostradamus. All right, we got a couple more slides here. We got 20 minutes or so. These will go. We can spend about 5 minutes on each. There is so much to talk about with White Sands. We have not even touched the surface on White Sands. We started off looking at White Sands, and that's kind of how I got into this like these mythologisms that seem to be interlocking as we were looking at like the tree of knowledge syncing up with the mushroom cloud. But last time we were looking at the first corn that was shot into space off one of these rockets that they were launching from the White Sands Proving Grounds. And to my surprise, it happened in like 1946. And as we were looking at it, I didn't look too closely at the structure where the rocket was launching from. But I said on air, I was like, man, that structure looks very pyramidal. I was like, I don't know if it's because I can't see well or not. And I looked closer at it. I was like, holy shit, man. Like, look at this. This is called the blockhouse at Launch Complex 33. And it looks like a step pyramid. And the explanation for why it's built this way is that when they were launching the rockets, this was like the safest place to be in case one of the rockets came down on top of him. I guess it would like slide off to the side and explode rather than blowing up the house that they were observing things from. Okay, sure, whatever. I guess. I don't know. But am I hallucinating? Do you guys see a pyramid here? And then like with the rockets going off in the background, those look like obelisks to me. And then it's in the middle of the desert, like Egypt, like White Sands. And you have to take the journey of the dead man, like where it is. Like this is like it's all like very occultically named or whatever out there. But then this creates like temporal issues. Like this is happening like 24 years before Apollo and 19 years before or 15 years before JFK becomes president. I'm not exactly sure how to square all these things, but clearly something about Egypt is going on here, at least to me. Do you guys see it? Yeah, no?
I see it, but I think it's consistent with the beliefs of people in a way, because as you said, like Freemasons, they study the Egyptians. It's the first degree of people talk about. It's even mentioned in Catcher in the Rye that when he visits his history teacher, the history teacher asks him, "What did we study?" Then he said, "We studied Egyptians for 28 days, and then and it's like the first degree." So it's woven into the beliefs. And I think this guy called Jim Parsons was there. He was a scientist. He was also into all these
Well,
things.
I don't know if Jack Parsons was at White Sands, but he definitely was out in California and Nevada, and he had they had the foundation for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which many people believe is named Jack, is really Jack Parsons Laboratory. That's why it's called that. But he was doing different sorts of rocket testing out there. So he was kind of like, from what I understand, of course, this is the history that I'm given, is that he was kind of on his own and then was kind of like a research maverick out there, and that this is more whatever was going on at White Sands was, this is where the Trinity test occurred, right? So this was the site of the Manhattan Project. And then from what I understand, this Launch Complex 33 was built like 2 months after Trinity was. So this is not like something they were using during Trinity. This is something that they were using just after Trinity. I think it was built in September of that year. So they didn't have this available. But well, look, there's so much deeper stuff to look into the Egyptian themes of White Sands. We'll get to it. This is as much as I could do on short notice this week.
Even like, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
just that even last year, like in 2024, there was an eclipse, and then we had this news about scientists like throwing rockets at 3:30 p.m. in the
Yeah.
afternoon at 33. It's like
Yeah.
it's embedded in their religion or something. I think there's something about it. So it's not very surprising to me that it's happening, but like the symbolic layers about this being in a desert in white sands, and I think when the jet would propel upwards, it would create so much heat that the ground would turn into glass or something. I don't know. I'm trying to
Yeah, they
imagine.
definitely when they dropped the Trinity bomb, it turned the glass into like a green. Oh, that's interesting. Like a green type of glass. I think it's called, they gave it its own name. I think they named it after the bomb. So yes, it turned the sand into glass. That's my understanding. I haven't seen it, but apparently that's what happened.
Jordan was saying something.
No, I was just gonna. But the National Park Service is quite the rabbit hole
Oh yeah.
that I will hold back from.
Okay.
White
Well, we've got,
buffalo.
I don't know if I know what that means.
Well, there's a white buffalo on the
On the insignia?
crest. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
That's very interesting.
Yep. There's a
I
lot
did
there.
not. Okay. All right. I think we got 3 more slides,
Yeah.
and that'll wrap things up.
Okay.
Okay. So I mentioned at the outset, I think it's impossible for Jackie not to have felt some sort of identification with ISIS. Given what I've been able to poke around and dig up in terms of the books that she published, especially the relationship she had with Jonathan Cott, who did Isis and Osiris, I think there are scattered remarks that confirm that. Now we can get into this whole conversation about when she started to feel this. Is this something she felt during the Temple of Dindur project while Jack was still alive? Is this something that she felt? I mean, even as a little girl, I mean, we looked at the letter or with the poem that her um, grandfather composed to her, comparing her to Artemis and Diana. And did that start getting her thinking about mother goddess figures or moon goddess figures? So when exactly that started happening, I do not know, but it seems to at least have been on her mind, given some of the conversations that Cott has related. I've thought about reaching out to Cott. He's like 83 years old or something like that now. I'm like, I don't know if I want to pester him about this. But some of the other books that she put out during the time as an editor, she put out something known as the Cairo Trilogy. Let me see if I got to get my glasses on here, where she was the senior editor for that. It's by Naguib Mahfouz. And she was really excited about this. It's an epic 3-part family saga set in colonial Egypt. We've also talked about Cott's book extensively, Isis and Osiris Exploring the Goddess Myth. She had a very close relationship with him during this process, from what I understand. And I guess this is one of the last ones that she worked on, which is fitting. I think she found Kott through another book that he did on Egypt that she put out called The Search for Seti. And this one's kind of uncanny. They were both obsessed with this book. And it's the true story of Dorothy Eadie, an English woman who believed she was the reincarnation of an Egyptian priestess and lover of Pharaoh Seti I. So that's an interesting idea that she loved a book about a priestess who had been reincarnated in modern times. That feels, I mean, she apparently the story with Kott when she met him, like she had like a newspaper clipping about this woman or this book. She held on to it. So it meant something to her. So maybe she had started to think like, maybe I'm Isis. I don't know. Egyptian Time by Robert Lyons. This is a photography book. I got this for like $7 off Amazon. So it's in the mail right now. I have no idea when I'm going to be able to read these things, and of course, the previously mentioned The Power of Myth with Joseph Campbell, where Egyptian archetypes are talked about. And she was instrumental in bringing this to market. Like I said, I think, I mean, wouldn't this be great? Like you could just do a book on the Egyptian books that Jackie did. I could take a chapter and summarize each one of these books, and that's a book. But I'm one man. So if anybody wants to do that, they should. I think it would sell better than whatever I'm working on. So I thought that was interesting. I probably will read all these books at some point. I'm going to start with the photography book, maybe, or the Isis and Osiris one. That seems to be the most important one. We'll see. I'll eventually get through them all.
This is, I mean, this is good. This is legit, actually. This is like
You like the,
you
all right.
can
Why do you like
defend.
this one so much? Why do you like it so much?
I mean, just her personal, she's in her spirit is in touch with all these mythologies. She's like it's deeply personal to her. So yeah, I think whatever we've been talking about, her being an Isis figure, and that kind of tracks. And if she thought of herself as an Isis figure, JFK becoming an Osiris figure becomes even stronger. Like, so that makes sense, because if she believed it, then it like we're not crazy, because she was there and it was happening to her. So like, if she can testify it for us, then we don't need anyone else's authority to tell us what reality is, because she herself is feeling it and it's happening to her, right? So she's the
She's
authority on this subject, I think, and she's like screaming out of her lungs like, this is me, I am Isis. Things like that. Oh god.
I mean,
So
she doesn't ever say it anywhere from far, but she definitely
she's
is.
winking it. She knows
She's
it, she feels it.
drawn to it. Yes, I think she's drawn. She sympathizes. I don't know enough about her expressed religious beliefs. Perhaps that would be an interest. I'll make a note of that. Um, it would
Like,
be,
Well, they went to mass, but I
yeah.
don't know if that was just during the Kennedy
Well,
years or not.
well, here's the thing too, is that, and this gets into Catholicism, right? Is that Frazer has this remark in the chapter. He says, the similarities between like the Isis and Horus imagery are so similar to Mary and Jesus that many Christians couldn't tell them apart. And this gets into an interesting conversation about, what about Egyptian religion got assimilated into the Catholic religion, and how important is it that both Jackie and Jack were very like possibly the most famous Catholic couple maybe ever, at least in modern times. Maybe
like,
not.
I don't see religion, like I don't see Isis thing as a religion for her. For her, it could be like a story from a faraway place
Yeah.
that felt similar. It's not like she's like doing rituals of Isis at her home, and like secretly building a lair deep inside the White House or something. It's just that I think she felt a kinship with it, because religion is something you're brought into. It's not something you choose. You in
Mm,
general, in general, like you can choose, but like
there's all sorts of
I don't know.
converts.
Converts are there. I'm not saying that you cannot have converts. I'm saying like people being, as soon as you're born, you become that. So it's like she might be able to demarcate it. It's not that she's, I don't know. I don't feel that she would feel so strongly about it that it would warrant a conversion, because it doesn't need that. Like you convert to express something, like it's like a conviction to the world. I don't think she needs to prove it to the world. She's already a capable woman doing that. I think normal people like us, like I'm a nobody, no, in just in case I'm a nobody. So people, I would have to, if I need some validation, external validation, I need to put it in, bring it in to the real world. How will do it? I might convert to maybe whatever religion I want. I may convert to Buddhism or Christianity to show that yes, I am a Christian or something. But like she was a woman of means, and she had a lot of extracurricular activities where she could, embody those beliefs and then let them be there. And that would satisfy her in a way that, okay, it's done. Yeah, I sympathize. I don't need to convert. It's like a person who's like obsessed with it, is living in his basement. He feels like, oh, I need to convert. I need to go out. So that's how I feel about it. It's like, if you have so many interests and like you're a person of means and agency, you can be a sort of a secular person in a way, keeping your public image. But she was all about her public image, right? So it's like she wouldn't do something so drastic in a way, like convert to ISIS, or like I see it's like it's a matter of convenience for her. It would be too inconvenient for her to convert, like even if she believed it deep down.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I don't personally think that she was doing rituals or anything like that, but I do think she probably felt that something like destiny was at work and probably had a religious feeling about the coincidences between this archetype and herself. So I wouldn't say it's devoid of religious feeling, but I don't know. I'm not some Jackie expert or know her deep feelings about things. I'm just kind of I'm inferring a lot from just the images and passing remarks and things like that. So yeah, one more slide. Okay. Oh, two more slides. Oh, this will be quick since do we have 6 minutes, Jordan? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be faster. Long and the short of it, we'll get through this. There is a lot of speculation and research from older comparative mythologists and scholars of religion that analogize Osiris and the Fisher King, because this is like layers of this story that we've been trying to wring out or whatever involve the Arthurian legend of it and the Egyptian aspects of it. And I think that one could make the case by consulting not only Jesse Weston would be enough to look at this, but as viewing the Fisher King as this dying and rising vegetative god, but also this guy named Lewis Spence, Alfred Nutt, perhaps even Joseph Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces. These are the individuals that we can consult to establish an identity between the Fisher King and Osiris. So let's go to the last slide, the true last slide. Okay, I mentioned this at the outset. Ever since I was a little boy, this colossal mud-like statue of JFK in the Kennedy Center is haunting. It really, I think I feel kind of better about what I'm looking at now, though it's mystifying on deeper levels. Because whenever I go see like a play or something like that, um, he's there. It's like you can't ignore it. This thing's like 8 feet tall in the foyer. And I started to think about it a little bit and how muddy he looks. This is a technique that the sculptor Bob Burks has developed. He really wanted to communicate the living nature of his subject, and I'm trying to get a miniature version of it off eBay or whatever, but I've been unsuccessful so far. To me, it's reminiscent of the mud, slimy corn mummies that they would do in these plantings of Osiris for the vegetation rituals. This may be, and I don't necessarily think Bob Burks is in on it and doing this. I think it's just a unconscious sort of allusion to that, what's going on here. And then in the center, we have one of these ithyphallic figures of Osiris composed of corn wrapped in resinous bandage with a gilded beeswax face. Okay. Even in some of the mini ones that they offer, like in the gift shop, where they start to turn green a little bit like Osiris, or maybe that's the bronze greening or whatever. But in addition to that, when you go into DC, seeing the Kennedy Center is bizarre a little bit. It's like, oh, that's the Kennedy Center, but it almost has like to me, it almost has like a religious hue to it. And thinking about it from an Egyptian perspective, it's right there on the Potomac, right, which is where Jackie wanted to put the Temple of Dinder, right, the Isis temple. And in a way, it's kind of like the Nile. And then the Kennedy Center itself, and I'll go deeper into it, looks a little bit like a temple with the right eyes, which is not so strange when you think about how many temple-like buildings there are in DC. But I think there are possibly, I'm not some architectural expert, some Egyptian vibes to it. And then what we're talking about with all this is passion play, right? It's like over and over again, we're rehearsing the myth of Osiris, the dying and rising god, with these effigies and things like that. Well, this is a theater. This is where performances are put on. So is the Kennedy Center some sort of river sanctuary for the spirit of Osiris is like taking up the whole place? I don't know, but it feels kind of right. So that's all I've prepared for today. I'll let you guys close it out, and I think we have 2 minutes.
Yes. Well, I loved today. I think we went to a lot of interesting places. Thanks, Luke, for putting it together.
Yeah, same. Also, he looks like he's made of wood. So it's like he
You
is
think looks
calcified
like he's
into a
made of
tree.
yes, yeah, okay, I see that too.
So it's like his
It,
skin is like a bark.
it's like bark. Yeah, I see that. I see it. I should say that Bob Burks, this was like his style, and this is not the only statue that he made like this. There's a notable statue that he also did in DC. It's the Einstein statue that he also made just like this. So this is just what he did. I think this is more of like the world spirit working through people who are doing this. I don't necessarily think he's like, oh, how can I achieve the Osiris effect here? I don't think that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right. See you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.